This is Lesson 6-3, Reteaching. The objective for this lesson is to use estimation and place value to multiply decimals by determining the location of the decimal point. Let's use this problem as a way to kind of explain and talk about how we can do this. Amelia can walk 3.6 miles in 1 hour. How far can she walk in 2.1 hours? So the first thing we're going to do is make an estimate for this problem. So our actual problem would be 3.6 times 2.1, because each of those hours she's walking 3.6 miles. But for our estimate, I'm going to round 3.6 up to 4, since 6 is above 5, so it's going to round up. And then my 1 in the 2.1 is lower than 5, so I'm just going to leave it at 2. So our estimate here is going to be 8 miles. Before we even find an estimate, we can also think about whether or not our product is going to be greater than our two factors, 4 and 2, whether or not that 8 is going to be bigger, based on the overall value of the two factors, the 4 and the 2. So let's take a look at that on the next slide. Here you have kind of an illustration of what I mean by that. 3.6 is a number that is greater than 1, and 2.1 is also greater than 1. And you know from multiplying whole numbers, say for instance 3 times 2, that number is always going to be bigger. Notice that 6 is bigger than 3 and 2. They're getting bigger as you multiply them. Because both of our factors in our problem were larger than 1, our product is going to be larger than both of our factors. So here we have the problem written out again, as well as the correct answer. However, this answer, or this product, only has the correct digits. However, it does not have the decimal point. We need to figure out where is a reasonable place to put the decimal point. So we have a couple of different options here. The first one we have is to put the decimal after the 6. That would give us 756. Or we could put it between the 5 and the 6, so 75 and 6/10. The next option is to put it between the 7 and the 5, so it'd be 7 and 56/100. And our last option is to put it before the 7, which would be 756 thousandths. So think back to when we found our estimate. We rounded, if you remember, we rounded 3.6 up to 4 times 2. We rounded 2.1 down to 2. So our estimate was about 8. Now I want to look at each of these numbers that I came up with and figure out which decimal placement makes the most sense if my estimate was 8. So looking at this, I'm going to see that 756 is much greater than 8, so this one doesn't make a whole lot of sense. 75 and 6/10 is also much greater than 8. 75 versus 8, 75 is much bigger, so we're going to go ahead and cross that one out as well. Then I have 7 and 56/100. Well, 7 is really close to 8, and 7.5, 7 and 56/100 is even closer to 8 than just 7 is. So that could be a reasonable answer. Let's look at the last one to make sure we've got it correct. 756 thousandths is our last answer down here. And that one is a very, very small number. That number is less than 1. This 0 means I don't even have a whole number in this decimal. So this isn't going to make much sense either. So the most reasonable place to put the decimal point is going to be between the 7 and the 5. This is going to help ensure that we have the correct answer and that we've put our decimal point in the correct spot by looking at our estimate and making sure it makes sense with our final answer.